Inflation has been seriously out of control. Yes, it clocked in at 7.1%, which was a little bit less than our expectation. And the Feds are still increasing their rate. Again, less than our expectation, but it's still increasing. So with a word recession that is looming, I guess it's around already so much. In fact, you're gonna hear it a lot in the near term. What does this all mean? How do we navigate this time? And most importantly, how do we then use this time to then increase our wealth and build ourselves up for the future? Well, you're in the right place. And of course, if you haven't done so, make sure to go like, share, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you can stay updated with the best know-hows and the best knowledge that you can have in the finance space. And of course, before we can address the question how to build wealth during a recession, we have to understand some of these key metrics that I mentioned, such as inflation and Fed rates. So let's talk about inflation first. Inflation basically means that you won't be able to purchase as much goods as you would have been able to for the same amount of money this year than you were able to last year. Across a given society, there usually is a healthy amount of inflation in there, and that healthy amount is usually between the ranges of 2 to 3%, but we have clocked in above 9%, and now we're bringing it down to 7%. Now, this often happens when there's a lot of printing of the money in the market, which happened because of coronavirus. There was a big downturn in the economy, and to spruce up the economy, to go out and spend a bit of money, the government then printed out all this money so people can use that money to go out and buy goods and create a bit of demand and get the money circulating throughout the economy. And when, of course, with more money in the marketplace, people had money to buy goods, and purchasing goods have become a competitive and a high demand exercise, which then brought the prices of so many goods higher and higher and higher. Along with this, there were some employment shortages with less people wanting to look for work. And of course, the Ukrainian war then made the prices go even higher, with Russia taking the backseat when it comes to producing oil for the rest of the world. So the initial printing of the money then gave rise to what's called inflation. Now, too much inflation is bad. And when that happens, the government tries to print less money or cut away the supply of money. Now, you might think that there is some sort of real printer that Jerome Powell plugs it into a wall and it just churns out money. But the fact is, we don't actually do that anymore. What we do is quantitative easing and quantitative tightening. Quantitative easing basically means you reduce the Fed rates. Fed rates is a rate set by the Federal Reserve to determine the rate at which banks loan and borrow money to each other overnight. And of course, if this rate goes up, then the interest rates are going to go up as well. Interest rates on your home loans, interest rates that businesses pay to run their projects, they're all going to go up. And with that being the case, when people try to purchase a house or governments want to start a new project, they're going to think twice about doing it, because by borrowing money from the bank, they need to figure out how much they can afford to pay back. And with the repayment check becoming higher and higher, people are going to think twice about their purchases, and companies are going to think twice about their projects, which means that it's going to slow the economy down a little bit, hopefully bringing the inflation down, and of course reducing the general money supply out there. So that's the situation we're finding right now. People think that 7.1% wasn't as high, and 4.5% in Fed rates isn't as high as we had expected. But the thing is, it is too early to say whether it is fully behind us, and therefore now it's nowhere but up again, and then Feds are going to start cutting rates back down so that there's going to be more money in the market, and therefore asset prices are going to go back up again, which includes your real estate and of course your stocks. But it's too premature to tell that, and nobody can really tell the market, although we probably can sense some overheating and some downturns in the market. So what are some of the things that we can build wealth during this time? And of course, without ignoring these bases, I think some of the best practices are the following. So first of all, I'll be looking at new money. Where is new money going into? What are some of the emerging technologies and industries? One of the really interesting industries that I looked at recently was eVTOL, which stands for electric vehicle takeoff and landing. It is literally flying cars. If you look at flying cars, it solves problems like high traffic. When it comes to literally going from point A to point B, whether that includes a parcel or some sort of logistics or some sort of transportation, these are problems that it can solve. So things like air taxis or even personalized vehicles where you can go from point A to point B, and because it's electric, it's not going to be as loud as the petrol counterparts in helicopter technology. And there's further applications such as eVTOL technology being used on port-to-port transportation, that instead of taking a plane over, which will be extremely expensive, they're cutting the cost down by 5-fold, and they're able to use what's called ground effect, which basically is getting a vehicle just airborne enough to lift above the surface of the water, and you basically glide, and it is extremely fast. There's very low drag, and these are real technologies that are being implemented to go from port to port within United States domestic travel. And of course, there's increased demand in that space, and where there's saving of the money and there's actual demand from companies, its popularization and adoption is only going to be a matter of time. And of course, there are personal and recreational applications of these eVTOL technologies as well. It's a documentary that I watched, and that was really helpful for me to understand, and I got digging into some of the companies that are actually producing and commercializing them. And it's not just a story of the future. There are prototypes of these personalized eVTOL vehicles that are happening even this week. And much like eVTOL technology, there are many upcoming and exciting technologies such as commercialized space travels, and I was really shocked to see Dude Perfect actually go to space to film a video of doing their trick shots. And of course, who could dismiss renewable energy? With the energy crisis thick in the atmosphere of today's economy, we really need renewable energy, and there's a lot of governmental and policy-based push that is happening across the green and renewable energy sector with the Inflation Reduction Act that came out from the United States, which basically pours in billions and billions and billions of dollars into renewable energy in this time of quantitative tightening, which is a bit ironic as well, of course. The reduction of carbon footprints across the board globally is going to be one that really pushes this industry forward, as well as domestic demand that's bringing up solar panels all across the board. But these are the time to actually become creative and look into these innovative spaces so that you become an early adopter and a ground floor investor for a long term. Now that we've looked at new money, step 2 is looking at old money. And speaking of old money, today's video is sponsored by Webull. In Webull, you can invest into more than 10,000 different stocks, ETFs, and options, and you can take advantage of free commissionless trading for the first 90 days if you sign up using the link in the description below. And the friendly people have hooked us up with a free stock worth all the way up to $150, so make sure you go check out the link in the description below and make sure you start your investment journey sooner than later. And so yet another good thing to do is for you to keep an eye on what is happening with big money. How are the biggest hedge fund managers moving their money in the time of recession? What are the things that they agree on? What are the things that they disagree on? And namely, the best thing you can do is looking at 13F filings. 13F is a form that these big hedge fund operators have to fill out because it is regulated by the Securities and Equities Commission, SEC. So the Form 13F basically obligates all of these massive fund managers, by definition people who manage more than $100 million in their portfolio, will be needing to make a disclosure on what they buy and what they sell every 3 months. So this gives us a very good window for us normal commoners to actually look into what the big money players are doing, what the smart money is doing. Here in Q3, we can see that a lot of big money players have actually invested money into stock that have actually corrected back down a lot. Here what I do observe is a very contrarian mindset. When people are selling, they're buying, and when people are buying, they are selling, which is much better than the alternative, because in the alternative you'll be buying high and selling low, whereas these guys are buying low and selling high. And yet another article, we can see some of the common decisions that these smart money people are making, with Warren Buffett and David Rolfe making similar investments into 6 companies, including Kraft, Taiwan Semiconductor, Apple, Johnson & Johnson, Visa, and US Bank Corp. I'm not saying that these are the go-to assets, but these are some of the assets that you can start to do your research with. Find out for yourself and research why these smart money have decided to invest into these categories or these types of companies. And of course, do not forget to take action once you have done enough research, so that you're not just wasting time reading about stuff, but actually building your wealth towards a long-term goal in the future. And last but not least, some of the things that you should probably consider is looking for a career change, or starting a business, or investing some sort of a skill in yourself. These are the times that you need to improve and focus on your cash flow. Things are going to be changing. What was in demand is going to be not so much in demand, and what wasn't in demand may become in demand as well. Starting a business during a recession and actually making it successful is one of the most rewarding things that you can do. Yes, it will come up with many challenges, but these are the times that you really need to lean into work. And with many jobs now turned into remote options, there is a stack of jobs that you can explore that you weren't able to explore previously. And upon doing some research, some of the upcoming sectors include e-com, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, healthcare, and hospitality. So who knows, could there be something that you could be doing to learn something new in these spaces and secure yourself a job during a recession where there is actually not only maintained demand, but increased demand, so that you'll be able to have enough cash flow to not only sustain yourself, but to take advantage of the times during recession to improve your investment in the future. So start taking control of your future. If you haven't done so, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, and I'll see you next time.